stock market is not in any way reflecting the volatility of this election, just like it failed to reflect the reality of what this country has been going through for the last couple years. In fact, tech stocks are leading the way to a market rally, and CNBC had a very honest person on to discuss why that is. So let's take a quick look at that.
Divided government, where the Senate remains in Republican hands and the presidency is, it doesn't matter which party, but where you don't have all three things in the hands of the same party, is clearly in the interest of anyone who might be up against regulatory pressure in the tech industry at the top of that stack. And so if you're an investor in Google, if you're an investor in Facebook or Amazon, the notion that Republicans will keep the Senate and the Democrats keep the House, that is probably the best case you could have hoped for, and it makes sense to me the stocks would react to that.
So in other words, they're not worried about regulation, they're not worried about any type of government oversight. So that means more profits for them and less rights, privacy for average Americans.
See, that's so funny because I thought I was the only one who figured it out this morning, and we talked about it in the production meeting. And then you find a video of someone just saying it on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so let me break it down a little bit further. So I see the markets go up. I'm like, that's curious because we have instability. Normally markets don't like instability. And then I pieced it together. I was like, oh, okay, I got it. Biden wins the presidency. What did Biden promise the donors? Nothing will fundamentally change. The Republicans keep the Senate. Oh, they love it. That means gridlock, status quo. And what does the stock market care about? Protecting the status quo. Why? Because right now they're on top and the rest of us are at the bottom. And so they don't need any change at all. Right now they have giant corporate tax cuts and they have almost no regulation. They're running wild. So they get rid of Trump, who creates instability, and if he went in the direction, that authoritarian direction that he wanted, it would shake faith in the dollar and in the markets, etc. They get Biden, who literally promised to their face that that nothing will fundamentally change, and they're like, yes, right? And then they get Mitch McConnell blocking everything in the Senate. It's a dream come true for the stock market. So now, if you watch cable news, they'll be like, yes, stock market is in good shape. That means the economy is doing great. That means you will not get a raise for the next 40 years. Oops, did I say that out loud? Did I say the quiet part out loud? Because you haven't gotten a raise in the last 40 years. And why do you think the stock market celebrates that? Because every dollar that they could have paid an employee, because of the political power and the crony capitalism that they have done, now becomes a dollar they keep as profit. So the market goes up. So they say, oh, it'll eventually trickle down to you. No, they literally take it from you so that their profits go up, and that's why the market's going up. Now, look, there are other reasons the market goes up. There are companies that are actually sell good products and hence have run a real business. But the amount of money that the government has poured in, both during coronavirus, but in terms of tax cuts as well, and the Federal Reserve policy, they've literally flooded these companies with trillions of dollars in loose money. And so they use that money that costs them almost nothing. They put it into investments, and then for the tax cuts, they just turn it around and bought their own stocks, which artificially inflated the stock market. It hasn't burst yet, and now they think, hey, it might not burst for another couple of years because status quo for the win. That means the rest of us are totally gonna get screwed. Corporations are totally in charge.
I'm sure the timing will be perfect, right before the next general election.
Yeah,
we'll see how the markets do.
Oh, and by the way, I mean, to Anna's point, look, there's two possible scenarios. One is, well, the bubble bursts at some point because these companies are not really worth that. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows they did stock buybacks, and let alone every other problem. And by the way, they do freely admit that on Wall Street too. If you go on CNBC.com, every once in a while, you'll see plenty of articles about the bubble, and loose money, and all of these things that I just talked about. So it's not a state secret. So it could burst, and then they'll blame it on Biden. They'll be like, yes, they'll bring in another corporate Republican. And ironically, more tax cuts, more deregulation, and more, and create another bubble. So and round it goes. The second possibility is no, it doesn't burst, but you go another 4 years with stagnant wages. You go another 4 years with no change to the system at all, and the rage builds and builds and builds in the middle of the country. So the elites in the coast, that's a real thing. There are elites in the coast, and they are totally disconnected from real Americans. You ask any of those elites, according to the federal minimum wage right now, what do you think the average American worker or the person making minimum wage makes, according to the federal law? I guarantee they'll be like, oh, minimum wage, that's tough. Is it 50,000, 75,000? What do they make? Of course, the correct answer is 15,000.
It's insane.
And
it's
when I tell that to people that honestly that I know, right? They're flabbergasted. They've never done the math. And they can't believe that anybody could live on $15,000 a year working a full-time job for the entire year. That's their whole salary. So why do you think the minimum wage ballot measures are passing so easily in Florida, Arkansas, Missouri, etc.? Meanwhile, Joe Biden didn't even campaign on it. He could have won Florida if he campaigned on it. Claire McCaskill didn't campaign on it in Missouri. She could have won the same exact election. Why? They're trying to make the stock market and their donors happy. So exactly what is wrong with the corporate Democrats, and stock market is jubilant that those are the guys that are in charge now. So yes, with Biden likely winning, we have saved democracy, but that's all. Don't get excited about anything else. Now that the Republicans have the Senate, we can't even pressure Biden in the right direction, and now McConnell might be able to pressure him to do very pro-Republican deals. And so not only will the next 2 to 4 years be disastrous because of that, but God help us when a smart right-wing populist rises in 2024. If that happens, I mean, we caught a break in a sense. Trump was a dummy. If he was just a shade smarter, look, he almost won this election, being one of the dumbest guys I've ever seen in office. Imagine a smart demagogue. Oh, this country is toast.
Good night, Irene, as you would say.
Yep.
I don't know why that came to mind.
I like it though. I hope it's good night, Irene, for corporate Democrats and Republicans. And it's gotta be, guys. The last thing on this, if a progressive that is really populist and really strong does not rise up in these next 4 years, we're in for a world of hurt. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.